The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, sliding through the mail slot of Olivia Morgan's Bellevue home like a snake under a door. No return address, her name written in careful block letters across cream-colored paper. At first glance, it looked like any other piece of mail, but this letter would destroy the life she thought she knew. Olivia almost threw it away with the junk mail. She was running late for work, her morning derailed by spilled coffee and a missing client file. But something about the handwriting made her pause. The letters were too careful, too deliberate. Someone had taken time to disguise their natural writing style. She tore open the envelope while standing in her marble-floored foyer. The letter's message was devastating. Dear Mrs. Morgan, you don't know me, but I must warn you. The man you married is not who he claims to be. I know this sounds impossible, but please listen. Your husband is a fraud. His real name is not Nathan Morgan. He has done this before to other women. He finds successful women, marries them, gains their trust, and then destroys their lives. I am one of his victims. I lost everything. Check his background. Really check it. Look into his past before you met him. You won't find anything real. He is planning something. Be very careful who you trust. You are in danger. The letter was unsigned. Olivia read it 3 times before her hands started shaking. Her purse slipped from her shoulder and hit the floor. Keys scattered across the marble. Nathan Morgan, her husband of 18 months, the man who'd appeared in her life like a miracle just 2 years after her first husband David died from cancer. The man who'd swept her off her feet with his charm and his perfect understanding of what she needed. The man who'd called her last night from his Portland hotel, asking about her day and reminding her to eat something healthy. This had to be some kind of sick joke. But the letter felt too serious for a prank, too specific. Olivia looked around her home with new eyes. Nathan's running shoes by the door, his coffee mug in the sink, his business magazines stacked neatly on the counter. Could all of it be a lie? Olivia had built Morgan Financial Services into one of Seattle's most respected investment firms by age 42. She managed over $50 million in client assets. Her reputation for smart, conservative investing had earned her a waiting list of wealthy retirees and tech millionaires. She was nobody's fool. She'd survived David's long illness, built a business from nothing, and created a new life after devastating loss. But if this letter was true, she'd been completely fooled by the person closest to her. The timing felt deliberate. Nathan was away on one of his frequent business trips, consulting for tech startups. He wouldn't be back until Thursday evening. That gave her 2 full days to investigate without raising suspicion. Olivia picked up her scattered keys and purse. She was going to be late for her first client meeting, but suddenly her perfectly organized schedule seemed less important than the questions racing through her mind. Who had sent this letter? How did they know Nathan? And most terrifying of all, what if they were telling the truth? She grabbed Nathan's laptop from his home office before leaving. If she was going to investigate her own husband, and she needed to be very careful about who she trusted. That evening, Olivia sat alone in her home office, Nathan's laptop open before her. The house felt different, bigger, emptier, like the walls themselves were keeping secrets. Nathan had never hidden his passwords. In fact, he'd made a point of sharing them early in their relationship, claiming complete transparency. At the time, it had seemed like trust and openness. Now it felt calculated, like someone who had nothing to hide because they'd already hidden everything that mattered. His browsing history told a disturbing story. She found multiple searches for her name and business dating back to 8 months before they'd supposedly met by chance at that Capitol Hill coffee shop. The searches were extensive. Her professional background, her first husband's obituary, detailed information about her business and client profiles. He'd researched how to access spouse financial accounts and joint bank account laws in Washington state. The searches painted a picture of someone studying her, not falling in love with her. But the real shock came when she searched Nathan Morgan's background. There was almost nothing there. No college records, no employment history before 4 years ago, no social media presence extending back more than a few years. For a 38-year-old man, Nathan Morgan had virtually no digital footprint. It was as if he'd appeared out of nowhere. Olivia spent hours searching public records, background check websites, and social media platforms. What she found made her blood run cold. The real Nathan Morgan had died in a car accident in Oregon 4 years ago. She found his obituary, a 26-year-old graduate student with no living relatives. Her husband had stolen a dead man's identity. But that wasn't the worst discovery. Hidden deep in Nathan's browser cache, she found traces of other identities he'd researched. Eric Daniels, Michael Chen, David Thompson. Different names, different locations, but all connected to missing person reports filed by women who'd been financially ruined. Each case followed the same pattern: whirlwind romance, quick marriage, combined finances, then complete disappearance with all available funds. The amounts stolen were escalating. $47,000 from Jennifer Walsh in Portland, $63,000 from Marie Hoffman in Denver, $85,000 from Rebecca Santos in Phoenix. Each victim was a successful professional woman. Each had been recently widowed or divorced. Each had trusted completely before losing everything. What was Nathan planning to take from her? Olivia's personal assets totaled nearly $2 million, but as a financial advisor, she had access to something far more valuable: her clients' accounts. The realization hit like ice water. Nathan wasn't just planning to steal her money. He was positioning himself to commit massive fraud against dozens of wealthy families who trusted her with their life savings. She thought about all the times Nathan had asked casual questions about her work, client meetings he'd suggested attending, his interest in her computer systems, his suggestions about streamlining their business processes. And then she remembered something that made her sick. 3 weeks ago, Nathan had suggested they bring Teresa into their personal financial planning. He'd mentioned how valuable Teresa was, how much she knew about the business, how they should make sure she felt appreciated. Had Nathan been cultivating Teresa too? Olivia closed the laptop and sat in the darkness, trying to process what she'd learned. Her marriage was a lie. Her husband was a professional criminal, and she might not be his only target inside her own company. Tomorrow, she would have to go to work and act normal while sitting across from Teresa, wondering if her trusted assistant of 7 years was part of a conspiracy to destroy her life. But first, she needed to find out who had sent that letter. Someone out there knew the truth about Nathan. Someone who'd been through this nightmare before. Someone who was trying to save her from the same fate. She had to find them before Nathan returned home. Olivia called in sick to work Wednesday morning for the first time in 5 years. She couldn't face Teresa or her clients until she knew more. Instead, she drove to a downtown internet cafe and began searching for Nathan's previous victims. Jennifer Walsh in Portland was easy to find. Her LinkedIn profile showed a successful marketing director at a tech company. Professional photos revealed an attractive woman in her 30s, with kind eyes and a confident smile. The kind of woman Nathan would target. Olivia found Jennifer's contact information and made a decision that felt like jumping off a cliff. She called. When Jennifer answered, and Olivia explained who she was and mentioned the letter, the silence stretched so long that Olivia wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, Jennifer spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. She asked with immediate concern if Olivia was safe. The genuine worry in Jennifer's voice confirmed this was definitely the person who'd sent the warning. Olivia explained she was safe for now, with Nathan out of town until tomorrow, but she needed to know everything. Jennifer insisted they couldn't discuss this over the phone and offered to drive to Seattle in 3 hours to meet in person. They arranged to meet at a Capitol Hill coffee shop, ironically, just blocks from where Olivia had supposedly met Nathan by chance 2 years ago. Jennifer arrived first, sitting in a corner booth with her back to the wall and clear sightlines to all exits. She was smaller than her photos suggested, with a wariness in her eyes that spoke of hard-won experience. Jennifer admitted she wasn't sure Olivia would believe her. The other women she'd tried to warn had thought she was crazy or jealous. When Olivia asked how many others there were, Jennifer revealed that Olivia was the 5th victim she knew of, though there could be more. Jennifer pulled out a folder thick with documents. She'd been tracking him for 3 years, ever since he destroyed her life. She explained how she'd met him at a business conference in Portland, where he'd called himself David Thompson. He was charming, attentive, and seemingly successful, claiming to be a consultant helping companies optimize their financial structures. The story was eerily familiar. He had no social media because he valued privacy. His past was vague because he traveled extensively for work. He paid cash for everything because he didn't trust credit card companies. Jennifer acknowledged the red flags were there, but he was so good at explaining them away. When Olivia asked how he'd gotten her money, Jennifer explained about the joint account they'd opened for their supposed wedding in Costa Rica. He'd convinced her they needed a special account for wedding expenses, honeymoon costs, and their new life together. Jennifer's voice turned bitter as she revealed there was no wedding planned. He was just waiting for the account to reach a certain amount. Then he cleaned it out and disappeared overnight. The amount was $47,000, everything Jennifer had at the time. Jennifer described her obsessive quest to track him down. She couldn't let it go. She hired private investigators when she could afford it, monitored social media constantly, tracked credit applications and background checks. It took her 2 years to find his next victim in Denver. Jennifer showed Olivia a timeline she'd created. 5 women, over 6 years, different names, different cities, but the same pattern: romance, trust, financial access, disappearance. Olivia observed that the amounts were getting bigger. Jennifer confirmed the methods were getting more sophisticated too. With Olivia, he wasn't just stealing personal savings, he was positioning himself to access her business accounts. Jennifer revealed she'd been watching him for months, following his activities online and tracking his movements when she could. He'd spent more time researching Olivia than all his previous victims combined. The implications were staggering. If Nathan could access her client accounts, he could steal millions from dozens of families. Jennifer believed he had help, someone feeding him information about Olivia's business, details he couldn't get just from being married to her, meeting schedules, client profiles, security procedures. Olivia's heart sank as she admitted she thought it might be her assistant. Jennifer's expression grew grave. She explained that if Nathan had inside access, he could move fast, probably while Olivia was distracted dealing with the personal betrayal. Jennifer leaned forward and expressed her belief that Nathan wasn't planning to just disappear this time. The stakes were too high. If he was going after Olivia's clients' money, he needed her permanently out of the picture. When Olivia began to understand what Jennifer meant, Jennifer explained she thought Nathan was planning to frame Olivia for the fraud. He'd destroy her credibility first, make it look like she stole from her clients. Then, when she was facing criminal charges with nowhere to turn, an accident would happen. A disgraced financial advisor committing suicide rather than face prison. Nathan would inherit everything and disappear with millions in stolen funds. Olivia suggested they go to the police, but Jennifer pointed out that everything they had was circumstantial, and if Nathan had law enforcement contacts, they could be walking into a trap. Instead, Jennifer proposed they set a trap of their own. But first, they needed to find out exactly how much Teresa knew and whose side she was really on. As they parted ways, Jennifer gave Olivia a secure phone number and instructed her to check in every 12 hours. If she didn't hear from Olivia, she would assume the worst and contact the authorities. Walking back to her car, Olivia felt the weight of what she'd learned. Her marriage was a fabrication. Her husband was planning to frame her for massive fraud, and her most trusted employee might be helping him do it. Tomorrow, Nathan would return home, and she would have to pretend everything was normal, while secretly building a case that could save her life. That evening, Olivia sat alone in her empty house, Jennifer's warnings echoing in her mind. Nathan wouldn't return until tomorrow night, giving her one more day to prepare. She needed to test Teresa without raising suspicion. The next morning, Thursday, Olivia returned to work with a plan. She would act completely normal while carefully watching Teresa's behavior. Teresa asked if she was feeling better when Olivia walked in. Olivia assured her she was much better, that she just needed some rest. Teresa seemed nervous, more talkative than usual. She kept glancing at Olivia's computer screen, lingering longer than necessary during routine tasks. Teresa mentioned casually while organizing papers, but Nathan had called that morning. She said he wanted to make sure Olivia was feeling better, adding what a thoughtful husband he was. The comment felt deliberate, testing Olivia's reaction. When Olivia asked when he'd called, Teresa said it was around 8, that he was worried about her calling in sick yesterday. But Nathan had never called the office. Olivia had been at her desk since 7:30. The phone hadn't run. Teresa was lying. which meant she was in contact with Nathan through other channels. Over the next few hours, Olivia watched Teresa more carefully. She noticed things that had never seemed significant before. Teresa staying late when Nathan traveled, her unusual interest in meeting schedules, the way she volunteered for tasks that gave her access to client information. Most telling was Teresa's reaction when Olivia mentioned a fictional new client. Olivia casually mentioned she might have a new high-net-worth client coming in next week, Margaret Phillips, a widow with substantial assets looking for aggressive growth strategies. Teresa's eyes lit up immediately. She asked about the woman's background with obvious interest. Olivia explained it was tech industry money, that her husband had left her very well off, and she was interested in some non-traditional investment opportunities. Teresa immediately suggested that maybe Nathan could provide some insights, saying he was so good with investment strategies for wealthy clients. There it was, the push to involve Nathan with client information. Olivia agreed it was a good idea and said she'd mention it when Nathan got back that night. Teresa's smile seemed almost predatory as she expressed certainty that Nathan would have excellent suggestions. That afternoon, Olivia called Jennifer from her office bathroom, the only place she felt safe from being overheard. She confirmed Jennifer had been right about Teresa, that she was definitely working with Nathan. Jennifer asked if Olivia was safe and could get out. Olivia explained she was okay for now, that Nathan didn't get back until tonight, but she thought they were planning to move soon. Teresa's behavior suggested they were ready. Jennifer stressed that Olivia needed evidence, real proof of what they were planning. Otherwise, it was just her word against theirs. When Olivia asked how to get that evidence, Jennifer advised her to set them up, give them false information that would force them to reveal their plan. But she warned Olivia to be careful. If they suspected she knew, they might accelerate their timeline. That evening, Olivia prepared for Nathan's return, like preparing for battle. She'd hidden recording devices throughout the house. She'd moved important documents to a safe deposit box, and she'd given Jennifer a key to her back door, just in case. When Nathan's car pulled into the driveway at 7 o'clock, Olivia took a deep breath and prepared to play the role of her life, the role of a trusting wife who suspected nothing. Nathan came through the door with flowers and Chinese takeout, relaxed and happy to be home. She asked about Portland while accepting his kiss. He said it was productive, but that he'd missed her. He mentioned Teresa had told him she wasn't feeling well yesterday. Olivia explained it was just a migraine, and she was fine now. Over dinner, Nathan seemed different, more focused, like a businessman who'd finally decided to pursue a major opportunity. He brought up their financial future, suggesting it might be time to consolidate some accounts and take advantage of better investment opportunities. When Olivia asked what kind of opportunities, he explained he'd been talking to colleagues about joint investment services. The idea was to combine their resources with some of her high-net-worth clients. He claimed it could be very profitable for everyone. There it was, presented as a legitimate business proposal. Olivia forced herself to sound interested and asked him to tell her more. Nathan explained that traditional investment firms were limited by regulations, but private arrangements between individuals could offer much higher returns. He pointed out that her clients trusted her completely. If she recommended a special opportunity, they'd participate. Nathan's eyes gleamed with enthusiasm as he suggested starting with her wealthiest clients, the ones with the most liquid assets. They could offer them exclusive access to opportunities they couldn't get elsewhere. When Olivia asked what would happen then, Nathan said everyone would make money together, higher returns for the clients, management fees for them. Everyone wins. Nathan was presenting it as a legitimate, if aggressive, business venture, and Olivia was recording every word. He emphasized the importance of structuring everything properly, making sure they complied with all regulations while maximizing returns. He pointed out that her reputation opened doors that most investment managers could only dream of. Nathan reached across the table and took her hand, telling her this could set them up for life. Real wealth, not just comfortable living. Olivia forced herself to nod and smile, saying it sounded promising. She asked when they would start. Nathan said, very soon. He mentioned Teresa had been helping him identify the best prospects. They should be ready to present opportunities within days. After Nathan went to bed, Olivia sat in her bathroom with the door locked, listening to the recording. On the surface, It sounded like legitimate business planning, but knowing what she knew about Nathan's true nature, every word felt sinister. Jennifer had been right. Nathan wasn't just planning to steal and disappear. He was building something more elaborate, a long-term con that would destroy her completely while making him rich. She had maybe 48 hours before he put his plan into action, and she still didn't know the full extent of Teresa's betrayal. Friday morning, Olivia implemented the most dangerous plan of her life. She would give Nathan and Teresa exactly what they wanted, while secretly documenting everything for law enforcement. She'd spent most of the night on the phone with Detective Lisa Park from Seattle PD's Financial Crimes Unit. They developed a strategy to catch Nathan and Teresa in the act while protecting her clients. The plan required Olivia to act completely normal while wearing recording devices and allowing Nathan access to fake client information. At the office, Teresa seemed more nervous than usual. She kept checking her phone and glancing toward Olivia's office. Teresa mentioned while bringing Olivia her morning coffee that Nathan had said she might have some new investment opportunities. When Olivia asked if he had, Teresa confirmed it, adding that he was so smart about these things. She expressed certainty that whatever he was suggesting would be great for Olivia's clients. The eagerness in Teresa's voice was disturbing. This wasn't just about money. Teresa genuinely wanted to see Olivia's clients get hurt. Olivia mentioned she wanted to talk to Teresa about Margaret Phillips. She confirmed the fictional client for Monday, a very wealthy widow, just like Nathan thought. That afternoon, Nathan arrived at the office unexpectedly, the first time he'd ever visited during business hours. He explained he'd thought he'd surprise her, kissing Olivia's cheek in front of Teresa. He added that he'd also like to learn more about this Margaret Phillips. When Olivia said she wasn't coming until Monday, Nathan called it perfect. That gave them the weekend to prepare their presentation. Nathan spent an hour in Olivia's office, asking detailed questions about Margaret's financial situation and investment goals, questions designed to help him tailor a fraud scheme to steal her money. But Margaret Phillips didn't exist. Every detail Nathan was learning was false information designed to trap him. What Olivia didn't expect was how brazen Nathan would become once he thought victory was within reach. As they prepared to leave, Nathan suggested that maybe Teresa should be more involved in their new investment services. He pointed out that she understood Olivia's business better than anyone. Teresa practically glowed as she expressed how much she'd love to help, however she could. Nathan called it excellent and invited Teresa to join them for dinner that night so they could discuss how to structure these new opportunities. "This is going to be incredible," Teresa said with excitement. That evening, sitting in an upscale Seattle restaurant, Olivia watched her husband and her assistant plan what they believed was a brilliant business venture. Nathan outlined his scheme with infectious enthusiasm. They would create an exclusive investment fund, offering opportunities that traditional firms couldn't access. Teresa would help identify the best clients, those who trusted Olivia most and had liquid assets to invest. Nathan explained the beauty of private placement opportunities was that they could offer returns that regulated markets simply couldn't match. 15–20% annually, sometimes more. Teresa leaned forward eagerly, noting that Olivia's clients already saw her as the expert. If she recommended something, they'd invest without hesitation. Nathan nodded approvingly, emphasizing that trust was everything in this business. He pointed out they had something most investment firms would kill for: complete client confidence. When Olivia asked how much they thought they could raise, Teresa consulted notes she'd apparently been keeping. She estimated from the top 10 clients alone, they could probably raise 15 to 20 million, maybe more if they included the ones asking about aggressive growth options. The casual way they discussed manipulating families who trusted Olivia made her physically sick, but she forced herself to nod and contribute, knowing every word was being recorded. When Olivia asked about compliance issues, Nathan waved dismissively. He said they'd structure everything properly: private placements, accredited investors only. He claimed the SEC loved sophisticated investors making informed decisions. He reached across the table and took her hand, telling her to trust him. He said he'd done this before. The key was making sure everyone felt like they were getting exclusive access to something special. What none of them knew was that Detective Park and her team were listening from a surveillance van across the street. The trap was working, though not quite as expected. Nathan was too smart to reveal his true intentions directly, but his enthusiasm for the fake Margaret Phillips opportunity and his eagerness to involve Teresa in targeting Olivia's clients provided evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud. As they finished dinner and prepared to leave, Olivia noticed Nathan checking his phone more frequently. Text messages from someone listed as cleanup. The reply came immediately, "Ready when you are." Nathan's demeanor shifted slightly, his businessman's smile becoming something colder. He stood and helped Olivia with her coat, saying he thought they'd had a very productive evening. Tomorrow, they would start changing their lives. The ride home was the longest 20 minutes of Olivia's life. Nathan drove normally, chatted about dinner, even turned on her favorite radio station. But his phone sat on the dashboard, and she could see more text messages arriving. When they arrived home, Nathan went through his usual evening routine. He seemed relaxed, even affectionate. But after he thought Olivia was asleep, she heard him slip out of bed and go to his study. His voice was low, but her hidden recording device picked up every word. He confirmed everything was in place and that she suspected nothing. He said the Phillips meeting on Monday would give them everything they needed. After a pause, he disagreed with waiting that long. He said she'd been asking too many questions. It was better to move tonight while she still trusted him completely. After another pause, he gave instructions. Once they were in position, he'd bring her down, make it look like a burglary gone wrong. By Tuesday, he'd be the grieving widower, and Teresa would help him transition the business. They'd have access to every client account within a week. Olivia's blood turned to ice. Nathan wasn't just planning to steal from her clients, he was planning to kill her tonight and use her death as cover for massive fraud. The recording captured every chilling detail. The same charming voice that had convinced her to marry him, now calmly discussing her murder like any other business transaction. Then she heard Nathan end the call and start moving around the house. Minutes later, he came back to the bedroom. He shook her shoulder softly and told her to wake up. He said he'd just gotten a call about a break-in at the office. They needed to go check on things. Her mind raced. The recording devices here would capture whatever happened, but that wouldn't help if she was dead. Detective Park's team was monitoring, but they were keeping their distance to avoid spooking Nathan. She needed to stall. She asked, feigning sleepiness, if they couldn't just call the police. Nathan said he already had, but he wanted to see the damage himself and make sure all the client files were secure. His tone was perfectly reasonable, but now she knew it was all an act. She suggested maybe they should wait until morning, that it could be dangerous. Nathan's expression shifted, his patience wearing thin. He urged her to get dressed so they could handle it and get back to bed. She had no choice but to comply, knowing Detective Park's team would follow and that her panic button was within reach. As they drove through empty Seattle streets, Olivia realized Nathan wasn't heading toward her office. He was taking a route that led to an industrial area on the outskirts of the city. She tried to keep her voice calm as she pointed out this wasn't the way to the office. Nathan replied that they were making a quick stop first. There were some people he needed her to meet. His mask was finally slipping. When they pulled into the parking lot of an abandoned warehouse, Olivia saw two cars already waiting. Men she didn't recognize stood in the shadows. Nathan turned off the engine and looked at her with eyes that held no warmth. He told her he was sorry it had to be this way, but she'd been asking too many questions, getting too close to things she shouldn't understand. That's when she pressed the panic button. Within minutes, the parking lot was flooded with police cars. Detective Park's voice boomed through a bullhorn as Nathan's associates scattered. Nathan himself seemed almost calm, as if he'd been expecting this. "Very clever," he said, as officers surrounded their car. As they handcuffed him, Nathan made one final attempt at manipulation. He revealed his real name was Eric Daniels and that Nathan Morgan had died 4 years ago. But he taunted them that they'd never find all the money, and they'd never find all of his associates. Even in defeat, he was still lying, still trying to control the narrative. 20 minutes later, Teresa arrived in a separate police car. She'd been arrested at her apartment, where investigators found copies of client files, forged documents, and over $50,000 in cash. Unlike Nathan, Teresa broke down completely. Through her sobs, she told Detective Park that Nathan had promised they'd be together after Olivia was gone. He'd said he loved her and everything would be different. Teresa's confession revealed the full scope of their operation. She'd been copying client files for months, providing Nathan with detailed financial profiles. She'd been feeding him information about Olivia's schedule, security procedures, even her personal habits. But the most chilling revelation was Nathan's ultimate plan. He was going to make Olivia disappear that night, then approach her clients as the grieving widower, offering to help transfer their accounts to a new investment firm. By the time anyone realized the money was gone, he would have vanished with over $30 million. Over the following weeks, as Nathan's case developed, the true extent of his criminal enterprise became clear. His real name was Eric Daniels. He'd been running romance scams for over a decade. The Nathan Morgan identity was just his most recent creation, stolen from a dead graduate student. Detective Park's investigation uncovered at least 12 previous victims across 8 states. The total stolen exceeded $2 million. But Nathan had been escalating toward bigger scores. Detective Park explained during one of their meetings that Olivia was going to be his retirement job. $30 million was enough to disappear permanently. Jennifer Walsh flew in from Portland to testify, finally getting justice against the man who destroyed her life 3 years earlier. She told Olivia she never thought this day would come. She was starting to think he was untouchable. But perhaps the most satisfying moment came during Teresa's sentencing hearing. Standing before the judge, Teresa finally seemed to understand how completely she'd been manipulated. In a barely audible voice, she admitted that Nathan had never loved her. She was just another tool he used to get what he wanted. She had thrown away 7 years of friendship and trust for a man who saw her as disposable. Teresa received 5 years in prison for her role in the conspiracy. Nathan was sentenced to 25 years on multiple federal charges. But the real victory wasn't the prison sentences. It was that not a single one of Olivia's clients lost any money. The investigation had moved quickly enough to freeze all accounts before any transfers could be completed. The forged documents were caught before processing. The investment scam was exposed before a single victim could be defrauded. 6 months after Nathan's arrest, Olivia stood before a packed auditorium at the Seattle Convention Center, delivering a presentation about financial fraud prevention. She told the crowd that the most dangerous predators are the ones who look like everyone else. They don't wear masks or carry weapons. They carry flowers and speak in loving words. They make you trust them completely before they destroy you. The presentation was part of a new consulting business Olivia had started, educating financial professionals about romance scams and helping victims rebuild their lives. She'd sold Morgan Financial Services and able to continue working in the office where Teresa had betrayed her daily. But the money from the sale allowed her to create something more meaningful, a foundation that helped victims of financial fraud recover and rebuild. Jennifer Walsh became the foundation's first major success story, using a grant to start her own marketing consultancy after years of struggling. At the foundation's launch event, Jennifer addressed other victims about hope and recovery. She explained that Nathan had taken 3 years of her life, but he hadn't destroyed her future. That was the real victory. Standing at the back of the auditorium that night, watching Jennifer speak, Olivia reflected on how completely her life had changed. A year ago, she'd thought she had everything: a successful business, a loving husband, a bright future. It had all been an illusion. But from the wreckage of that illusion, she'd built something real, something that mattered, something that would help ensure other women didn't have to endure what she and Jennifer had survived. The anonymous letter that started it all was now framed on her office wall, a reminder of how one person's courage to speak up had saved not just her life, but the financial security of dozens of families. Nathan had been right about one thing. Olivia Morgan had been the perfect target. She was successful, trusting, and had access to millions of dollars. What he hadn't counted on was that she was also smart, resourceful, and surrounded by people who cared enough to warn her when she was in danger. In the end, that had made all the difference. 2 years after Nathan's conviction, Olivia received a letter at her foundation office. For a moment, looking at the plain envelope with no return address, her heart raced with memories of that Tuesday morning. But this letter was different. The writer thanked Olivia for her Denver presentation about financial fraud prevention. Her story had helped the woman recognize she was being targeted by someone similar to Nathan. She'd found evidence of a fake identity and contacted the FBI instead of confronting him directly. They'd arrested him the previous week. He had stolen over $400,000 from 3 other women before targeting her. Because of Olivia's warnings, she hadn't lost anything, and his other victims would finally get justice. The letter ended with gratitude for Olivia turning her nightmare into something that protects other people. Olivia smiled as she filed the letter with dozens of others like it. Each one represented a woman who'd escaped the trap that had almost destroyed her life. Nathan had been right about something else too. His network had been deeper than anyone initially realized. Over the past 2 years, his arrest had led to the discovery of an entire organization of romance scammers, sharing victim lists and techniques across state lines. 17 additional arrests had been made. Millions in stolen funds had been recovered. The ripple effects of that anonymous warning letter were still spreading, protecting people Olivia would never meet from predators she'd never encounter. Olivia looked around her small but comfortable office. Photos of Foundation success stories covered one wall. Thank you letters filled several filing cabinets. A calendar marked with upcoming presentations stretched months into the future. It wasn't the life she'd planned 2 years ago, but it was a life that mattered. Outside her window, Seattle's evening traffic moved steadily through the financial district, where she'd once managed millions for wealthy clients. Now she managed something more valuable. She managed hope. Hope for victims who thought they'd never recover. Hope for women who'd learned to trust again. Hope for families whose savings had been protected because someone else's nightmare had become a warning. Nathan Morgan, Eric Daniels, or whatever his real name was, had tried to destroy her life. Instead, he'd given her the most important work she'd ever done. As Olivia locked her office door and headed home to her new apartment, she thought about the lesson she'd learned the hard way. The perfect husband had been a lie, but the imperfect kindness of strangers had turned out to be the most powerful truth of all.